It's a big, big honor for the book fair to have invited Durjoy, the young, up-and-coming, and very famous Indian intellectual novelist to come to Hong Kong. And especially Durjoy has chosen Hong Kong to launch his latest novel, right, which is going to be on sale in India on the 24th of July. While you're being physically here, all right, shows that, just shortens the geographical or even the cultural distance between Hong Kong and India. I mean, we used to share, as Hong Kongers, a few chapters in our colonial history. I mean, you ask someone who were born in early 1960s and 70s. We used to have some Indian neighbors. When I was in my kindergarten, there was an Indian schoolmate who happened to be a Sikh child, Sikh. Well, I mean, until many years later, after I went to England, I realized that the Sikhs came from the northeastern part of India, Punjab, rather than the main continent, or the main peninsula of India, right? Yeah. I mean, we used to live with the Indian people, and some of us enjoy Indian food. There are quite a few good ones on Hollywood Road and near Lan Kwai Fong. Yeah. I've got a couple of very good Indian friends. You know, one being named, is Vernon. One is called Vernon, who's in his early 90s, a veteran Hong Kong journalist, and who's now retired and is now living happily on the Lama Island. I mean, I could see in Hong Kong there's a young and up-and-coming generation who get a little bit mesmerized by the Indian, modern Indian culture, by films like The Three Idiots, right? And an earlier one, right? The $1 Million, right? Yeah. Directed by the British director Charles Boyle. Yeah. Yet Hong Kong people seldom go to India because of, many stereotypical perceptions, like you could easily catch typhoid and cholera there, and then have come back with a bad stomach and that sort of things, right? Yeah,
that's a common perception, that
right.
you can get your stomach in a tizzy.
I mean, I had always dreamed of going to India, but until I had a car accident in 1994, I had to cut off 2/3 of my spleen, and after which the doctor told me, for the rest of your life. I asked him, now I'm quite happy. I feel quite lucky to be back in one piece. Okay. But will I suffer from any inadequacy after this surgical operation? He said, you've lost 2/3 of your spleen. You are vulnerable to viruses and diseases. My advice to you is that for the rest of your life, you could go to Europe and America, Canada and Australia, and even China. But I would avoid, if I were you, going to Africa or India, because your immune system is rather vulnerable, right? Okay. So, I mean, from then on, I felt a little bit lost, right? And I hope one day I could, try this brave adventure. When I get a little bit older, I go to India and will see that as my potential last trip of my life. But anyway,
I'm sure it will not be.
It's good to see a tiny, cultured and intellectual and very wise India coming from there to Hong Kong, right? And let's say I like to say a few words about Durjoy. I mean, like the author of The Three Idiots, he was educated as an engineering student at the University of Delhi. Yeah. And then you went on to do a management course, right?
Yes.
And then did you become a banker or whatever? Right?
A marketing analyst.
Marketing, right. You were doing clearly something extremely different. And how on earth did you turn yourself into the career of writing? Because this would be unimaginable and totally baffling to most Hong Kong parents and students, because we have been taught in a very disciplined, if you don't call it rigid, educational system when you go to colleges or universities to train as engineers, and then the whole world would assume that you'll come out as an engineer, civil engineer or mechanical or whatever, and wouldn't do anything else. Certainly you wouldn't get into this, into the career of writing, which would end up with a few disappointed, frustrated writers who would just keep sending his scripts to publishers and get rejected. Right? So what is the magic of the Indian education system that has got this reputation of making its young men so versatile, straddling between two worlds, the world of science and the world of arts?
So, as far as the education system is concerned and engineers turning to writing is concerned, India churns out about, I would say, 4 to 5 lakh engineers every year. And a lot of them are pretty incompetent like me. So a few of us aren't that good at what we do, and there's something else that we are better at. So, there are always a few black sheeps who turn to other professions, and I happen to be one of them. The other author that you were talking about, he was much more intelligent than I am because he went to the better colleges. but yes, as far as writing and my journey is concerned, I belong to a family that is based in West Bengal, and West Bengal has this rich tradition of growing up amongst books. So although my family, everybody's an engineer, but everybody has a huge collection of books in their homes. So when I grew up, I was fed on a diet of literary fiction from India, which is respected all around the world. So that is how I grew up. So writing was just an extension of my journey as a reader, because when you're a reader, you're in a conversation with an author. It's a very personal experience. So when I started writing my first book, I wanted that conversation to go beyond just reading and maybe start writing, so that I have a bigger stake in that conversation. And when I started writing my first book, I never thought that I'll get published. I just did it because it was there. It was there to do. And even when I got published, it wasn't as if it is something that I will do for a living. It was something that I would do because I derive an unhealthy amount of pleasure from it. It is something that I have to do when I go back home, even after work or studying. So this is why I started writing, because I could not imagine a world without books, and now I cannot imagine a world without me trying to write a book.
Your books have very strange and curiously long but intriguing titles, which would just capture the curiosity of your readers, almost at first sight, right? Such as, of course, I love you until I meet someone better, and then like this one, now that you are rich, let's fall in love. It conceals a sense of wit, not just wit but cynicism, right? Do these tiny expressions reflect the cynical views of most urban Indian young people?
Yes, I think India, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, and even now, there's there's a growing frustration amongst the youth about everything, about their careers, about education, about how people are, uh, about the growing disparity between the poor and the rich, or about the have and the have-nots. So when I was younger, everything used to constantly trouble me. So although there's no common ground where everybody comes up and there's a voice against what you feel is going wrong. So when I wrote these books, I felt that that maybe through the title I can really put out something that I feel strongly about. And I used to be a cocky young guy. I did not mind putting out stuff that people would be sort of uncomfortable about. So, but over the years, I have sort of realized that maybe I should sort of mellow down a little. So, my latest books do not have cocky titles like the first few ones.
Cocky means arrogant.
Arrogant, and
So you never had problem with dating girls. It's the other way around. You had pretty girls flocking towards you, although which is not surprising because you're quite good looking.
I would not call myself arrogant as such, or that I was arrogant. I was just angry. So
angry.
Yeah. So, and it's a very common feeling amongst the Indian youth. Everybody has the simmering rage inside him or her, which he or she cannot channel into something better, because there's a lack of opportunity. There's a lack of opportunities that are out there. So yeah, it's very common amongst the Indian youth. It's getting better, but it'll still take time.
Well, in some of your novels, right, there's a reflection of the social reality in India, right? The gap between the rich and the poor, urban lives and that sort of things. As a young man, you get stuck in this very complex economic and social fabrics of India today, right? It shows a certain kind of cynicism in the romance, right? So is it hard? Well, do you consider yourself coming from a middle-class background?
Yes. So even I am from a middle-class background. So when it comes to why engineering and why writing, so the only way you can sort of break the web of being somebody who belongs to a middle-class family or lower middle-class family and go to the upper rungs of the society is to choose a career which will guarantee you success. So if you ask me why engineering, it was my way out of the web so that I can be in the top percentage of people who are economically and socially, they have everything. So, that's the only thing that will help you break those barriers. And now, when I've shifted into writing, I could only do that because I know that writing will sustain me as an individual. A lot of people cannot, or even I could not have taken the risk at the outset that I'll just go out there and start writing, because I have to secure a future first. And it's not that it's not in the other parts of the world as well, but in India, if you do not have a successful career, you are absolutely nowhere. Yeah.
Well, this pragmatism is found everywhere in the Far East, right? Malaysian Chinese or Taiwanese or Chinese, mainland Chinese and Hong Kong people, because we over here do not believe, our parents and teachers don't have a strong belief in in encouraging students and children to do humanities subjects like fine art, philosophy, and history. I mean, these disciplines are always sidelined or a little bit marginalized in colleges and universities. So, I mean, taking myself an example, I had developed a strong aspiration or love for literature and arts. But in my secondary school years, my hobbies and my inclinations were very much frowned upon by my parents and many relatives. So, I mean, is that a similar case for you? Had you been given a choice, free choice, or would you have done something like literature or Latin at Oxford or Cambridge?
No, I don't think I would have done that because I was conditioned in a way that
you were buried in books.
Yeah, but I was conditioned. See, books was a big part of my life, but I was conditioned that you have to do engineering, and it's not. And I was good at the sciences. It wasn't that I was really bad, because I did manage to crack a few competitive exams, and I was good at it. I did not really think that studying about physics or chemistry was something that really bothers me. I used to enjoy doing that, but it's also that I don't know whether it's in the whole eastern region, but in India you are supposed to finish your education as soon as possible. So when you're 17, you are given the responsibility to choose what you are going to do for the rest of your life. So at 17, it's very hard for a 17-year-old to say that, okay, I'm going to be a writer, or I'm going to be a doctor, or I'm going to be an engineer. I think after school or after college, there should be a gap of 2 or 3 years where people, go out and see what the different career options are, and then decide, okay, this is what I'm going to major in. Had I had those 2 or 3 years, I would have probably figured out that I want to get into writing, not necessarily a writer, but maybe even journalism. But since at 17 you have this responsibility of choosing your career path, engineering sort of made sense.
You sort out your bread and butter first, right?
Yeah.
Before going on to some luxury of free thinking, creativity, and imagination.
Yeah.
So were you already good in maths and physics as
Yes,
in your teenage?
Yes, I was. I was pretty good at it. Once I found myself in an engineering college where everybody was as good as me or better than me, that's when I thought maybe I'm not the best person to do this. But in school, I used to be pretty good. So, I used to finish in the top 5 every time. But, when you get so many people who are good, who are in their top 5 in a premier engineering college, the ones who are not as good, they start to think, okay, this is not something that I'm supposed to do.
So in that case, how could you manage being a young scientist and a young avid writer at the same time?
So
because it's divided between your left brain and right brain according to some posh and fashionable scientific theories, and one cannot possibly, or is very unlikely, to have both brains, both hemispheres, powerful and strong. You are either good in the left, or the right.
Okay. I think that's where you make your priorities. That that's where you go from studying because you like studying, because you want to be proficient at the subject, to changing that to you want to do well in your exams. So my concentration was not to know, say, automation to the best of one's ability. My concentration was to do well in my exams. So when you try to do that, you obviously free up a lot of your time, and the time I freed up was spent reading books or writing. So my concentration had shifted within the first 1 year of my engineering to scoring well in my exams. That is all I cared about.
How has your childhood or life experience in metropolitan cities like Delhi influenced you in the career of writing?
I think in a city like Delhi, especially in India, even if you're living in a metropolitan city, it's the experiences that you go through are very varied, because the disparity between the rich and the poor, it's very apparent, right? That the people who come out of luxury homes sit in their 7 Series, and they'll go on the streets and you'll find a cow. You go to the next signal and you'll find someone begging. So and the interesting part is that on the face of it, you'll think that, okay, this guy is begging. But if you go to the backstory, maybe a beggar earns more than a plumber. So there are interesting stories scattered all around a city like Delhi, which has so many people coming from so many different states of India, which bring together their cultures from their own states. and it's a melting pot of a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds who each of them have their different stories. So it sort of preps you for life and for experiences.
So I met Louis de Bernier yesterday, the famous English writer who told his Hong Kong readers how traveling extensively to countries ranging from Colombia to Turkey and Cyprus has benefited in his literary imagination. So have you traveled extensively in India? Because you have a very good and long literary tradition dated back to Tagore, right? Yeah. And then you had the famous Nobel winner, Napur, right?
Yeah.
Who has written on the topic of decolonization,
yeah.
right? And India is certainly a very important, integral part of the global village. It belongs to the third world, and it's got 6,000 years of civilization. And fortunately, it has never undergone something like the Cultural Revolution. So the good values, are still very preserved and retained. Good ancient architectures and temples, even Victorian style, even the train station of Victorian styles are very much preserved and retained in major cities. You come from a very rich background, right? So do you consider yourself, a modern young Indian writer with some global interests?
Yeah. So when you come from a place like India, which is so vast, and where the dialect, the how people behave, how people live, and what people eat changes like every 300-400 kilometers, it first overwhelms you, and then as and when you go deeper into it, there are many stories behind it. So even if I belong to a state which is in the eastern part of India, which is West Bengal, I have relatives scattered all over India, and what it does is that everybody starts imbibing some or the other characteristics of other culture in their own culture. So at the end of the day, what happens is that you get to live a lot more many lives than just one. So and coming from a place like Delhi where everyone from every state comes and lives in, it gives you a sort of a feel what every state is like. So it is a good experience, coming from a country like India, which where every region has a rich history. I mean, if you from the north, where every king and every kingdom used to be very aggressive, you go to south, where everybody has been always kind of more peaceful. So yes, the tradition part really helps.
So, I mean, in Hong Kong, right? Well, India gained its independence as early as 1948, and your writers or even the young generation have contributed so much to the English writing world. Whereas in Hong Kong, we are now so-called enjoying the one country, two systems, high degree of autonomy. So many people complain about the decline of the English language. So what is the magic about Indian education system, which after more than 60 years of independence still generate brilliant English writers who are not only good at writing memos and writing some kind of policy speeches, as shown by our chief executive, boring, humdrum, and lackluster English style. I mean, what happened to the English language education system? Were you encouraged to read a lot of books? And is grammar being taught in a rigid way since primary school. This is what we do here in Hong Kong. 5-year-old kids were taught how to remember, vague terms which don't make sense, like past participle, like subjunctive and preposition and conjunction or whatever. And then as you go through your English test, you are given, gaps to fill, where to tell whether this is a conjunction or a preposition. And this is the sort of things that put off a lot of our Chinese kids in Hong Kong, because it's like studying maths or chemistry, trying to remember terms like subjunctive and past participles. It's like trying to remember names of rare metals and chemicals and things like that. And that put off a lot of people. How did you learn language from your primary school years?
First of all, I do not know what a conjunction is, but but as you mentioned, a 5-year-old, no matter what you try to teach him, it'll be tough for him to get it. But even I don't know, but if I got a conjunction wrong when I was 5, I'm pretty sure I would have been caned. So it's that strict in India. But you have to get your rules right so that you can grow up and you can master the language. I think the Indian education system, why English is that important, is because India is trying to make its place in the global scenario. So English is one language that will break a lot of barriers. So English is a very important language for people to learn. And it is important to get your rules right when you're young, so that you can go ahead when you're an adult and play around with it. So it is important, and plus in India, at least in my school, there used to be periods that were strictly dedicated to reading. There are extra marks if you read extra books, there are extra marks if you read newspapers, and there are examinations that test you on that. So that is how they start to sort of inculcate the habit of reading. And India reads in a lot of different languages. Even though English is not India's native language, still I think it's the second largest market for English books. So the habit of reading is pretty much there. And India, I don't think it's a reason, but internet and Facebook and Twitter, it's not as prevalent in India. The internet connections are still slow, so there are lesser things to distract people. So yeah, I think all of this helps. Not getting distracted. Spending your time with books is still very much a part of Indian culture, and you'll find a lot of people reading books in India. I mean, it's also very, as young people, it's also what's a cool thing to do. Reading books is a very cool thing to do in India. When you're well read, you're respected. If you're not well read, you're just like anybody else.
Well, you deal with romance, right, of the contemporary Indian cities and societies. And India has got a very strong religious cultural background. And Indian women's role, right, over there is sometimes raises concern by the world, And young girls still, when they get married, right, they pay handsome dowry, right, to the husband's or to the husband's family, right? So, but in the rest of the world, feminism has been rising, right? So how do you see these discrepancies, as far as the role of female is concerned, while treating your women's characters in your novels?
Okay. So as you said, the tradition is not always a good thing. So all these things, but you talked about dowry, right? When the girl family has to pay the boy's family a certain amount, it's illegal. So there are laws against that. So you can't do that anymore. So there's rising awareness about that. Everybody knows that this is not the right thing to do. But there are some things that are hard to shake off, and it will eventually go. And as you move from the rural parts of India to the urban centers of India, a lot of awareness is there, and a lot of everything has to do with education. The more people get educated, the more people get aware of where the position of women are in the society is in the society, it will get better. So it's not that India as a country does not recognize where women should stand or what's her position is in the society. It's just that it'll take some time for women to be up there with the men, and it's happening. So the discrepancy is just because India is starting late. It is in the next 10 years, 20 years, it will be there, or maybe even ahead. So it just takes a few examples to set the tone that okay, women can do whatever they want to in India as well. It's just that. So when it comes to my books, every girl in my book is probably working somewhere. Every woman is very headstrong. Every woman is very ambitious. Every woman is career oriented. So I do not want to, even through my books, I do not want to give a false impression that women are second to men. If anything, the men are less independent. They're not as strong as the women, because they think that any society can only progress if the women in the society are strong.
So your works, right? No wonder are very much welcomed by female readers in India, right?
Yes, I think so. I would like to think so.
All right.
Yeah.
So, what did you sometimes, encounter any writer's block? I mean, this is a very, prolific volume of writings. You're still very young. You've published, 8 books already?
Yeah, this is my 9th.
The 9th one,
yeah,
to be launched in Hong Kong?
Yeah.
I mean, this is incredible volume of work, right? 9 or 8 books, and you are not yet, how old are you? Not yet 30.
I'm 26.
Yeah?
I'm 26.
Yeah, 26, and one can hardly imagine the coming 30 years how many more books you would produce, right? Shakespeare only wrote 37 plays altogether, but he died in 52, and now you are approaching about, a quarter of his capacity as far as number is concerned, right? How come you've been writing so efficiently and smoothly?
I think it has to do with the kind of background I have. When you come from a science kind of a background, you allot hours to what you do. So no matter what I write, I make sure that I sit down every day in front of a computer and stare at it for 3 hours at an end, even if I do not produce anything. So I think that keeps me away from finding problems writing. So when you are striving that hard to put something down on paper, you eventually do, because you have every reason not to write. You just have to sit down and try to write. So even if there goes a day that I do not sit down in front of a computer, that day will translate into 7 more days. So I just make sure that I sit and try to write. So it's not that I do not go through writer's blocks, but my writer blocks are more like I'm writing bad stuff. But that's still okay, because you're still writing. And there will be a chance that you'll come back to it and rewrite it. But if you stop writing, that's when you stop thinking. So I have to write because I have to keep thinking about what I'm writing.
Do you discipline yourself, right?
Yes.
Restricting how many words you have to produce every week?
No, yeah. I don't put limits. I put limits in terms of time, as in a minimum limit that okay, I have to sit down for at least 2 hours a day, not less than that. But other than that, if I feel like writing, I've written 10,000 words a day. Out of them, I might have deleted like 9,000 the very next day. But if I feel like writing, I do not stop myself.
Wow, this is still amazing, right? So, your latest book, right, is curiously to the great cities of Delhi and Hong Kong. Now, you have never lived in Hong Kong before, right? So how come Hong Kong has come into your dream, or has been mobilized by your muse, and introduced to you?
Yeah. So when I started writing this book, I had this idea that about the main characters of the book. But I had written a good 10-12,000 words for it, but it wasn't going anywhere. And then I received this proposal from Hong Kong Tourism Board that, why don't you come to Hong Kong and see if you can set a story here? And so I came here, and the talks are in very preliminary stages that whether it will happen or not. So I came here on my own that, let me see whether I can set the story here. I came here, I stayed here for 8 days, and after that I called them up and I told them that, I think I can do this. I think I feel that Hong Kong is a place that my characters need to go to explore, to find a culmination for their story. And that's how I thought that Hong Kong plays an important role in the story. Because the only reason the story wasn't going forward is because I did not know where to place it. Because all my books are set in New Delhi, so I wanted a different setting, but it wasn't going anywhere. So Hong Kong gave me that opportunity to, get the story out there.
So you've never been to Hong Kong, have you? Or before?
Yeah. So this is my second time.
Your second time only?
Yeah.
So when was it your first time?
My first time was in early March.
What? When?
This year.
Oh, this year?
Yeah.
So even before, what? After you wrote the book? After you finished the novel?
No. So I wrote like 30-40% of the book, then I came to Hong Kong, and then I finished the book.
All right, so in the middle of your writing, you came to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And then you finished your book. That means you started off writing this novel out of no knowledge of Hong Kong whatsoever.
No.
Except your imaginative one.
Yeah, so when I write, I just start developing the characters and the main message. It's only after that I put in other elements. So yeah.
Well, I have to admit that I haven't read this book. If someone has just given it to me, but flipping it through, was some of the paragraphs are really amazing. If I could read one. As he entered the hotel, luxurious and opulent beyond his sanest dreams, he felt privileged, spoiled, and even lucky. More so when he found himself next to a girl who was beautiful, fair, and proportionate, like a goddess and the figures in Da Vinci's sketches. He wanted to make sure it wasn't one of his open-eyed dreams. They were on the elevator to the top of the hotel, and he could see them, the girl and him, riding together into the sun like the elevator of the chocolate factory that broke right through the building and floated into the yellowness of the sun, the yellowness of Hong Kong. Aha, Hong Kong, right? I mean, this is really, the most romanticized version of the city I've ever seen, after having lived here for so many years, I could never, imagine Hong Kong could be that visually, exuberant and mesmerizing.
Thank you so much. But it's also when you come to a city for the first time, you see the city in a different light. When you're living in the city for a really, really long time, you tend to take things for granted, and then you miss out on a lot of things. It's only from a traveler's eyes that you can see how beautiful your city is.
So I hope, hotels in Hong Kong, on your trip here, wouldn't give you, some otherwise perception, because as Hong Kong people, we are horrified by the buzzing, noisy Chinese tourists, squeezed in the same elevator, who talk very, very loud, and some of them smoke, right? So, I mean, I would say you've come to Hong Kong not at a very good timing. Had you been born a few decades earlier, come to Hong Kong and visited the Mandarin or Peninsula in the year of 1983, yes, I would say this could be the image or perception of Hong Kong then, right? But now, oh my goodness, I hope, right, we as Hong Kong readers, after going through the journey together with the Indian writer here, will have some sentimental or nostalgic reflections on the city in which we were born and brought up. And then, sometimes we rely on foreign writers to help us to re-recognize the city we live in. For example, Love is a Many Splendid Thing, a novel written many decades ago by Han Shu-ying, when the city of Hong Kong, the background was set in early 1950s, soon after the Korean War, and that was turned into a romantic Hollywood film. Yeah. And some of the film clips can be seen on the YouTube. They're 6-minute long. The fishing village in Aberdeen, and then the meandering roads, leading from the city of Wan Chai to the peak, and that sort of things. Okay. So, thank you very much for, presenting this beautiful link between the city of New Delhi and Hong Kong. And I hope one day, some of the tourist groups, tourist agencies in Hong Kong would organize trips to New Delhi and even Goa as beautifully as what mentioned in your book. Have you been there? Another Portuguese enclave, Goa, in India.
Where?
That Portuguese enclave on the eastern coast of India.
I don't think
Goa.
So. Goa. Yeah.
Right,
I've been to Goa. Yeah, when you put it like that, yes. Yeah.
Have you been there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Many times.
Is it very different from other cities of India?
It is like the premier destination where people go when they want to have a good time. So and the city is very relaxed. So it's predominantly that. It's very beautiful to look at. It's very calming. It's very peaceful, and it looks like nobody works here. So yeah, it's a different experience.
Then you must take a side trip to Macau from Hong Kong while you are here and ask your host, the TDC, to pay you for a nice in a luxury hotel there. Although, it's a Portuguese enclave, but now it's been turned into a replica of Las Vegas, in the Far East. Whether it's a good thing or not, depends on opinions. So, how have you been inspired by any great Indian English writers or native writers?
Yeah, I think I grew up reading Tagore.
Tagore, right?
Yeah. So
he writes in a dialect, in a very rare dialect, rather than Hindi. Is that true?
He writes in Bengali.
Bengali, yes, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, he writes in Bengali, and he also writes. He's not restrictive in what he writes. So he writes full novels. He writes poetry. He writes short stories. So every Bengali kid grows up reading him. So I would not say I'm directly inspired by him, but it's something that I grew up reading. It's something that I remember reading from my childhood. And apart from that, when you're a kid in India, you read a lot of foreign authors.
But do you speak or read Bengali?
I can talk in Bengali. I cannot read it.
All right. So when you read Tagore, it's in English.
Yeah, we read it in English.
So you're reading the same stuff as I have, because I found Tagore's poetry so touching. He builds up the kind of inner emotional, sentimental link with nature, which goes all the way into the very depth of the universe, that would lead you into profound reflection upon the meaning of life. Right? I mean, it's amazing stuff.
That's why his work has endured over so many years. I think the only a lot of people get into this conversation that what is literary fiction and what is commercial fiction, and I think the only definition that I do believe that what literary fiction is something that endures over a really long period of time. So if somebody asks me that whether this book is literary fiction, I said if people are still reading it after 50 years, it is literary fiction.
Yes. And how is literature taught in India's secondary school?
So in school, it's not taught at all. I mean, we do have so in India, it's we generally concentrate on language and not on like specific great Indian novels or great novels. Yeah, so we're just concentrating on the language. It's only once you get in college, you start to concentrate on different novels and different styles of writing. So up till school, it's just language.
What about Indian mythology? I mean, we in Hong Kong, our knowledge about India is the shared mythological image of the Monkey King, which is called Hanuman in Hinduism, who helped the king, right, to dispel troops of invaders. Okay. And his heroism was very much recorded in a very long epic, right? Yeah. And Hanuman was imported into China in, I think, 16th century, and that was turned into a classical novel. The Monkey King also served as a warrior to protect a monk sent from Chang'an, the capital of the Tang Dynasty, who set on a long journey to go to India to collect the Buddhist scripts, right? So, I mean, since childhood, a few kids of Hong Kong or in China have been obsessed with the king, Monkey King Hanuman, right?
But mythology in India is still I mean, how I know my mythology and how other people around me know their mythology is still through a lot of storytelling, oral storytelling. So whatever my mom told me, or whatever people around me or my grandmother would tell me, that's what I know about mythology. It's not still a lot of reading that people do to know what about Hanuman or about Ram or about Ramayana. So it does not come from reading. It comes from what is told by your parents or what is told by your grandmother. So it's a lot of that. Because I think it started like that. As oral storytelling, it was just that somewhere down the line somebody thought that we would put this in writing, but the tradition still continues. So it'll be long drawn stories about Hanuman, about Ram, about Sita, about Ravan that still go on. But obviously that tradition has to stop somewhere, because I do not know as much about Ramayana as probably my grandmother knows. So probably the coming generation would have to read a book about it.
So do you like the film Pi, right?
I do. I mean, it's visually very appealing.
It's a novel written by a Canadian, not an Indian writer.
Yeah.
Do you think that reflects faithfully what happens in India and its cultural origins or background or whatever? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but whenever there are movies that are made on India, you obviously have a more critical appraisal of that, and then you're like, maybe it's not that true a representation.
But certainly the dancing in candlelight and in very colorful robes, are visually very striking.
Yeah, visually the movie was absolutely overwhelming. It was brilliantly made.
So, I mean, since the majority of the audience here in this auditorium is local Hong Kong Chinese, so may I just summarize what the young talent has just said in a few candid lines before I invite questions from you. 呢位咧Durjoy咧，佢係由呢個印度嗰度嚟，今年咧得26歲，佢未去過英國，咁啊英文係佢個第二語言，佢用第二語言咧寫英文小説，而家出版咗8本。咁我頭先就問佢點解印度個教育制度可以咧，同樣以英文咧為非母語可以出到咁多寫作嘅人才，包括咧。寫嗰個 Three Idiots 嗰啲係嘛？同埋咧，因為佢係來自一個理科嘅背景，佢係去大學咧係讀工程，然後又讀工商管理。點解咧？喺我哋香港咧讀工程同工商管理係同文化、文學、藝術呢啲中間有一埲牆係隔絕。點解咧？印度咧係可以得係嘛？同埋咧佢嗰個小説裏邊咧。佢係呢啲好多講嗰啲印度大城市嗰啲男女關係，呢種男女關係咧係喺嗰個書裏邊咧係令我哋睇到而家嗰個社會個脈搏啊！咁咧 佢又係一位而家非常之成功嘅小説家，而且最重要係點解咧？喺印度獨立咗60年之後，仲啲英文仲係咁好普遍喎，唔止係佢一個。咁英文好咧，係令到印度咧係成為不但係今日英聯邦嘅會員國啦，而且佢係一個民主國家。當然佢有好多種嘅問題啦，係嘛？但係咧佢係一個即係而家嘅新興嘅嗰個一個發展中嘅國家，係嘛？呢樣嘢咧，我真係好希望香港一啲家長同埋教育局嘅官員咧，都會喺呢個座談會度咧聽到佢哋問一啲問題，因為我自己覺得16年以來香港係忽略咗由印度嗰度學下，點解人哋印度一樣係脫離英國殖民管治，但係到今日咧啲英文都咁好，個語文教育到底係點係嘛？咁所以咧，而家俾翻各位咧有啲咩問題，盡量咧用翻英文咧去舉手啦，問下佢啊。So question time, right?
I'm sorry, I just want to just read your book. I don't know whether I pronounce your surname is correct or not. Mr. Datta.
Yeah, it's
correct.
Datta. Yeah.
Okay. According to your book, I don't know whether this is a true story, but I don't think that it's a true story, as you mentioned. This is about a bright girl, and they are, leading. But in this forum title is reading amongst young people. Why your page 46? Therefore, one word, damn it.
I did not get you.
You read your page 46. There's just a water believe us, damn it. If this is a right English word in this sentence, your expectation for this is one question.
Whether the expression is right?
Yeah. Why? Because this is the reading amongst young people, correct?
Yeah.
And young people need to learn, damn it.
Oh, okay. Okay. So this is also how people talk, right? This is not a guide to how people should talk or about grammar. So this is how people talk, and a book has to be a true representation of how people behave or how the society is. So you can't really cut corners. So if somebody says "damn it," you have to write "damn it." Okay. Yeah.
Another question is regarding your page 164.
You read 164 pages?
If I read it and I mentioned Jim Sarchoy smell like a street in South Delhi. How do you smell Jim Sarchoy?
You can't smell it. You can smell India in it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pre-dom. I mean,
No.
it's.
How do you feel about how you smell Jim Sarchoy?
I think you have to close your eyes and just stand at a place and smell it.
What's your feeling about Jim Sarchoy?
How can you describe any smell?
How you smell it? What is the you feel it's a good smell or something special smell? I don't care about your writing in these books. Amman are just very briefly, and I know not much vocabulary. You can understand, and this is quite good for young people. But the title is Reading Amongst Young People. How you want to leading us on this?
As in how
you leading the reading?
how do I want to get that message across?
Yeah, because that's the title. Reading amongst young peoples.
You want me to explain that? Or
Yes, I want.
that
Can you explain it?
as in how do I want to promote that? I'm not getting your question at all.
I mean, when about the forum is want the young people reading.
Yeah, okay. I do get an idea. See, the thing is that one of the main themes of the book is how important is reading to us and why people should read. So the main character.
I just received this book.
Yeah. Yes.
Holds my hand.
Yeah.
Okay, holds my hand. It means that you regarding is a romantic book. There's a guy come to Hong Kong and met a bright girl and fall in love. Am I correct?
Yeah. In parts.
I don't know what is. I haven't finished the ending.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So when you read the book, you'll find that there are a lot of subtext to the whole book, and falling in love is not the only thing that happens in the book.
But in your book, a lot about Hong Kong, the city, like Taiwan, like Disneyland. Please read the book first. Sorry. Please read the book first. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, please.
I actually have two questions for you. The first one is, in a society, or at least in a world where we have so many Indian writers, especially some of the prevalent ones like Arundhati Roy, Champaleri, or even Chetan Bhagat, how do you see yourself standing out amongst a crowd with such, with writers who have made a really big name for themselves?
I think they have decades of experience more than me, so I have a lot of time. And secondly, I do not want to stand out amongst them. I want to make a place for myself. So I'm not trying to ape anybody in terms of what they have done. So I want to do the same. And every writer has this own niche. So what say a Chetan Bhagat writes is very different from what Arundhati Roy writes or what Salman Rushdie writes. So every writer. Writing is a profession where you do not directly compete with another writer. You're the only person you're competing with, or the only thing you're competing with, is your old book. So you want to do better than what you did last time.
Okay. My second question is, you earlier mentioned how the Indian youth has a lot of frustrations when it comes to the Indian society. Your books, however, they're more along the lines of romantic fiction. Do you think that something like maybe politics or social issues would be something that you would tackle in your future books?
Yes. See, there are two parts to it. Yes, I would when I have a better understanding of it. And B, I'm not saying that too won't be a book which is on romance. Because, a very famous journalist, Manu Joseph, just said that, when I think Amartya Sen said that Indian media is very frivolous when they show news about gossip. But Manu Joseph replied that, you have to package everything in a way that you lure your reader or your viewer inside the entertainment box, and then you give him meaningful messages. So, a romance book can have subtexts that are much more important, than the romance.
Would you end up romanticizing or placing an entertainment value to,
yes,
say, for example?
That is something that you have to do because, say a 21-year-old, he has the option of going out to the movies, or he has the option to be on Facebook and waste his time, or be on Twitter. And you have this book, which is predominantly something that will take 3-4 hours of locking yourself in a room. So you have to sort of get him to sit in that room, read the book, feel good about himself, and then deliver the message. So you have to take care of that thing.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that gentleman first.
Mr. Datta, as you may know, here in Hong Kong, a lot of Chinese parents like to speak English to their children, even though their English is really not that well. And so my question is that do Indian families would greatly promote using English in their own family communications, and whether do you think that that contributes to the high level of English proficiency in India?
For the first part, yes. A lot of 5-6-year-old kids speak better fluent English than me. But the second part is that you should not ignore your native language, because although I may not be as fluent as the 12-year-olds in India who have been brought up on a steady diet of communicative English, but I'm not sure whether they can write good English, which is more important than speaking good English, right? So what it does is that a lot of youngsters in India, they cannot speak Hindi as well as they should. I mean, how I was brought up was both these languages were given equal footage. I used to read and talk in English in school, but when I was at home, I used to speak in Bengali and in Hindi. You have to have the background of at least 2 or 3 languages, because it makes you a better person, because you can read so much stuff. I can read in Hindi, I can read in English, and not all works in Hindi or in Bengali are translated into English. So I don't think it's a very healthy trend that, as kids from Chinese parents or from Indian parents, you should be communicating in just English.
Do you think that it is hard to strike a balance between learning your native language and learning English?
No, I think as far as native language is concerned, it should be up to the parents. And as far as learning English or other language is concerned, you should concentrate on learning it at school.
Thank you. I was very wondering, do you think that writing in English is a kind of experiment or something like, or you just think in English style? I think it's very interesting that few Chinese writers would tend to use English to write books. So is it very common in your country that to write book in English? And why don't you write in India? Thank you.
No, yeah. So the thing is that the language that you think you're good at when you're writing is the language that you end up writing in. So while I will be more fluent in Hindi while I'm talking, I'm better at expressing emotions when I'm writing in English. So if I'm talking to a person in India, normally I would talk in Hindi. But if I were in a fight with that person, I would switch to English. So that is how it works.
Do you think you live in an English style way? Sometimes you live in an English style or write in English style?
Not really. I mean, in fact, when back in Delhi, when I'm writing in English all day and when I'm reading in English all day, I do not like to talk in English with my peers. So because I'm like, I've had enough of English in a day. Now I want the other language to kick in.
Hi, you're an engineering student, so I just wanted to know, how is it like without any qualifications or training to gather the confidence like to write for yourself or even approach publishers, like without much found grounding, so to say, in writing?
I had the experience of reading about 1,000 books. So I had that background. Okay. So and as far as the confidence is concerned, I wasn't confident at all. I did not think that I'd get published. So I just wrote it and I went ahead and submitted it. It was just a lucky break that they decided to publish it. And I really thought it will go out of print, but it did not. And it worked out well for me.
I was interested to hear that you were invited to Hong Kong by the Hong Kong Tourism Board. Did you ask them why they had invited you? The reason why I asked is I was wondering whether they wanted to promote Hong Kong in a romantic style amongst young Indian readers.
I'm sure they did, but I'm not sure I'm the right person to ask this question, that why me? But
did you not ask yourself why me?
I do not ask questions when I'm given opportunities. I just accept it and not. So yes, but I'm lucky that they called me here because you know I when they approached me, I was like, you know, I'm not promising you anything. Let me see how your city is, and then I'll tell you that whether I can do it. So that's the only question that I asked. Not from them that why me.
So they just wanted you to promote Hong Kong.
They wanted to see whether I could do it. They threw it in the air, and I got it. And it
Okay,
happened.
thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, firstly.
Thank you.
I just had a quick question. Could you tell me some of your favorite, Indian authors who write in English and non-Indian authors who write in English as well, who have inspired you over the years, as well?
Okay, so my current favorites in Indian authors, they are Manu Joseph and for people who are not from India, my current favorite is John Green. He writes for young adults. So my favorite authors keep on changing as far as as and when I read their books. So and I grew up reading a lot of Roald Dahl when I was a kid. That he was like my initiation into reading books. And then when I got into literary reading, it obviously started with Tagore. And then it went on to the works of Arundhati Roy and Salman Rushdie, although I'm not a big fan of Salman Rushdie. But yeah, so I since I do not have a structured approach to reading, I pick out an author, I read a book, then I forget about the author, then maybe come back to that and read another book of his. That is how I approach my reading.
I would like to ask this question. Did you experience any cultural shock when you arrived in Hong Kong? The reason for my asking this question is how I found Hong Kong often romanticized in some other ways in movies, especially Hollywood movies. Because last week I watched Pacific Rim. I wonder if everybody has watched that. And the film actually depicted Hong Kong in the way that it was still in the 60s or 70s, the way how maybe Wong Kar-wai shaped Hong Kong in his movies. So I wonder if you found Hong Kong a lot different from your expectation. Thank you.
The thing is that everything happened so quickly that I did not have a chance to mold my opinion about Hong Kong before I came here. But I did think of it as a very metropolitan city, maybe a few steps ahead of Delhi. That's what I came in mind with when I came to Hong Kong, that this will be what Hong Kong is. But when I came here, I also realized that and Hong Kong is also very warm. And metropolitans like Hong Kong, which look like Hong Kong, aren't that warm. Because I realized that the bigger city you go to in Delhi, the more disconnected people are. And I was just talking to somebody this morning about Hong Kong. I was actually shocked that how concerned people are. I don't know whether it happens intra-city, but I mean between the people of Hong Kong, but it certainly happened with me, that everybody is trying to assure that you're comfortable and that you're getting all the help that you need. Because I remember the last time I came to Hong Kong, there's this huge metro station. I think it's Central or some place. So I wanted to know where the exit is, and I was still in the MTR. So there was a person who got down from the metro, and he escorted me to the exit. I thought he'll probably get down at that exit, But when I got out, he got back and he boarded the metro again. So I was that would never happen. I mean, I have never had that, happen to me. So I thought there's this paragraph in this book that when the guy lands in Hong Kong and he gets into a taxi, the taxi driver says the word okay about 15 times just to make sure that there's an understanding between the main character and the cab driver, and it actually happened with me. He asked me that, are you sure you want to get here? Are you sure? Do you have the address? Can you show me the address? So the city is very, very warm, which does not look like it would be. Right?
Can I ask one follow-up? Do you think it's because you have a foreign face?
So that is what I said. That I don't know whether it happens within you guys as well, but it certainly happened with me.
Well, being a young writer, and your first book was a great success, did you feel very stressful when you wrote your second book? And even more stressful when you wrote your third book? And how did you cope with your distress?
Not really. See, India is a huge, huge country. So even if your book is successful, it means that you would have sold 40,000, 50,000 copies, and there are about 50 more crore people that you can sell your book to. So there's absolutely no pressure. And initially I was not written in the media as well. So it really does not matter, unless you are a literary fiction writer and your books get reviewed a lot. That's when the pressure comes in. Since I was not from a literary background and I did not have peers who were in journalism or into writing, I did not feel that pressure.
It seems that while planning your writing, you start with characterization and the message. So what is the core value that you would like to convey to your readers?
In this book?
In general, as a writer. Because it is assumed that you start with some message that you would like to get across to your readers. So what is the core value that you would like to convey?
So I'm pretty young, so I get influenced by learned people very easily. So every time I write a book, I have something else in mind. So while I was writing this book, I was very disturbed by the lack of interest that people have in reading. So that was the core message that I wanted to start out with, that you have to read. That's why the main character belongs to a family of librarians and he's constantly around books, and that is what makes him a better person. So I wanted to bring that message out. The second message out was obviously that there's a line in the book that says that eyes complicate things. When you stress too much on how the person looks and how the person acts in front of you, you do not concentrate too much on how the person is in reality or how the person is on the inside. So this is the second message that I wanted to put across. That is why I made the girl blind, so that and the girl is very pretty, but she has absolutely no concept of what prettiness is. Or so even if somebody tells her that you're beautiful, the girl would say, I do not know what that means. So these are the two messages I wanted to put across.
One last question. Yes.
Hi, Mr. Datta, nice meeting you. First of all, I suppose you will keep on writing, right?
Yeah.
So what makes you keep on writing, and what are you chasing for, except money, reputation, or satisfaction?
That's pretty much it. But yes, more books. And what makes me keep writing is it's something. It is such an integral part of my life now that I cannot not write. It makes me. I mean, we all do something in our lives, right? So if you were to say what you did in 2003, and you cannot think of what you did in 2003, it means that you wasted your life in 2003. So I do not want a year in my life that I said that I can go in the future and say that okay, I did not do anything. At least I can say that I tried writing a book. I tried writing a book which was about XYZ concept. So I can say that, and this is what I want. And what am I running for? I don't know. I mean, I have absolutely no idea.
Okay, thank you very much, Durjoy. And we wish you an enjoyable trip in Hong Kong.
Thank you.
And found that your impressions about the real Hong Kong would confirm what you have been trying to portray in your latest book. And we wish you every success with your latest
Thank you.
artwork. Right?
Thank you. And
Which
it's
is
an
to be
honor and a
launched.
privilege to be here.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.